It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Monday, April 28th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Wyoming Community Foundation, who asks you to give back to the place you call home. 5 to Thrive is your opportunity to leave a legacy for generations to come. Support the community nonprofits you care about with a gift through the Wyoming Community Foundation. Visit wycf.org to learn more. An Air Force member is wanted by the federal government on claims he fled child pornography-related criminal prosecution. 27-year-old Airman First Class Brandon Standifer was last seen April 19th outside the arrival section of Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport. That's according to a statement marked urgent that was sent to Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland by the Wyoming Division of Criminal Investigation.
So federal authorities call it CSAM, child sex abuse material. Those statements said that the airman was facing allegations related to that material and fled his post, was declared a deserter, and was last seen at the Bozeman airport. They say they have indications that he wants to kill himself in nature.
The Air Force Office of Special Investigations is investigating the matter along with the U.S. Marshal Service and various federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. Well, nearly a year after a University of Wyoming arts instructor disappeared on a mountain bike ride, there are still no clues as to what might have happened to him. Nash Quinn is believed to have left his home sometime in mid-July of last year, never to return. Cowboy State Daily's Jen Coker reports that despite massive searches encompassing more than 70,000 acres of area by law enforcement, search and rescue, Black Hawk helicopters, drones, cadaver dogs, volunteers, and Quinn's family and friends, no trace of him has been found.
The timeline for when he disappeared is fuzzy. And the reason for that is he's a university professor. So in the summer, university professors have looser schedules. So the last correspondence that Nash definitely had was with his boss, Doug Russell, at the college on July 8th. So then Nash was due to teach at a conference, and the person organizing the workshop contacted Doug Russell and said he hasn't checked in with his timeline to say when he was coming. And so that's when Doug Russell got very concerned, because that is not like Nash to be irresponsible when it comes to work. The people I spoke to described him as being somewhat of an introvert who might go off the radar for a few days, but certainly would never blow off a work obligation.
Though there are no new updates in Quinn's case, the Laramie Police Department is still actively investigating and urges residents to look for any clues, particularly his white bicycle, or any signs of Quinn in the Pilot Hill, Rogers Canyon, and Happy Jack recreation areas where he was known to ride. The Trump administration is pulling out all the stops to drill, baby, drill in a push for more oil and gas drilling on public land. But Cowboy State Daily's David Madison reports that low oil prices have producers in Wyoming wanting to instead chill, baby, chill in an attempt to boost the market.
We've all heard the phrase, drill, baby, drill. It's become a political rallying cry for oil and gas industry wanting to cut the red tape of the federal government permitting new wells. That's been an ongoing argument for a long time. The Trump administration has stepped in and tried to accelerate things, saying that it's going to cut what used to take a year down to 14 days and what used to take 2 years to 28 days. And so there's clearly pent-up frustration in the industry. But is there pent-up demand for more oil? Because the price per barrel of oil is around $65, that doesn't inspire a lot of new development of oil fields.
This month, the U.S. Energy Information Administration predicted the price of oil will continue to dip by about 1.5% over the next year. With the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill in less than 2 months, and of America's founding coming up next year, history buffs will be looking for places to see legendary artifacts of the American Revolution. And Wyoming is home to one of the most legendary artifacts of the Revolution, the musket that fired the first shot at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that the relic is housed at the National Museum of Military Vehicles in Du Bois, owned by Dan Starks.
Just after America had newly formed, they had drafted an army of volunteers. So this was the first official battle of the American Army, June 17th, 1775. It's the one where the general said, don't shoot until you see the white of their eyes. Some historians have said that was because we were short on ammunition. Other historians have said it was because, we wanted the shock and awe factor. Regardless of the reason, somebody didn't follow the order. Somebody fired a shot at a British officer at 54 yards away and started the battle prematurely. We didn't win that battle, right? But we did so well. We shocked the British. We killed over 1,000 of their men with poorly trained troops, poorly equipped troops who didn't know what they were doing, who were so undisciplined that they didn't even follow their commander's orders. It was kind of a morale boost.
Starks paid nearly $500,000 for the musket, which is housed at the museum's Unknown Soldiers Weapons Vault. There are around 300 firearms in the vault, which span all the wars fought by Americans, starting with the American Revolution. And now let's take a look at today's weather forecast with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
It's going to be a busy Monday weather-wise across Wyoming. First of all, we have a strong cold front pushing from the Pacific coast that's going to be moving across the northern and central Rockies today through early Tuesday. We have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories for the Bighorn Mountains. We have winter weather advisories for the mountains of Yellowstone Park, west of Cody and west of Meeteetse. We also have a flood watch in effect for the Sheridan area. This storm system is really going to focus a significant amount of rain on the plains and snow in the high country of far northern and northwestern Wyoming today through tonight into early tomorrow. Elsewhere across Wyoming, showers and thunderstorms, especially in the northeast plains and the central parts of Wyoming, will be likely today through early tonight. The showers will be a lot more spotty along the I-80 corridor. Then another front will bring another round of rain, snow, and thunder to the whole state Tuesday night through late Wednesday.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
We're a company seeking to develop a rare earth element mine outside of Wheatland, Wyoming. Rare earth elements are magnet metals, an important industrial input in everything from your cell phone to an F-35 fighter jet. We're trying to bring a domestic supply online so that our country doesn't have to rely on China. Please visit our website at AmericanRareEarths.com.
When a Newberg, Oregon police officer started his night shift Wednesday last week, he had no idea he'd spend 5 hours on the phone with a barricaded man 1,000 miles away in Riverton, Wyoming. Newberg resident Melissa Ware had found herself on a frightening video call with her cousin, Ron Allington, who had locked himself into a house with a knife and a BB gun after police had come to arrest him on an outstanding warrant. Ware told Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland that the Newberg police, tipped off by the Natrona County Sheriff's Department, had sent Officer Jeremy Peelan to support Ware in her hours-long attempt to reason with her cousin.
He's next to her and she's negotiating with her cousin who's in the standoff, and she just off the cuff goes, "Do you want to talk to Officer Pilone?" And he's like, "No, I'm not a trained negotiator." And too late, she handed the phone over. He ends up talking to Natrona County crisis negotiators at the same time. So he's feeding his phone call with Allington into those negotiators, and they're texting him on 2 more phones like, "Oh, here's the direction you should go. Here's what you should try. Give this a shot." And so it's just this giant collaborative marathon that lasts 5 hours.
After the standoff finally ended, Allington was arrested without further incident. He faces 2 counts of aggravated assault, 1 count of possessing a deadly weapon with unlawful intent, 1 count of reckless endangering, and police interference. The passing of Pope Francis has invoked a color wheel of emotion for Wyoming's Catholics, a highly diverse group whose approach to the faith can seem as individual as the colored panes of a stained glass mosaic, and yet held fast by ritual and community. Cowboy State Daily's Zach Sontag spoke to several Catholics who reflected on Pope Francis's legacy and the future of the church.
Emotionally, there's sadness, there's hope, there's a sense of concern, there's a sense of gratitude. Francis was considered a pretty controversial figure, even within the so-called left-right spectrum of where you fall. within Catholicism, there isn't a clear dividing line on all of these political issues. Even some people who really love Francis, and they say he's about as good as it gets. I don't know that we can get somebody that's a better replacement than him. They're showing a little bit of concern. And then you have really devout people who are practically setting up second residencies in the church pews since Francis's passing, and they are just feeling this moment so deeply, and they describe it as though Francis was a part of their home and their household.
The coming conclave will see over 130 of the church's cardinals gather in the Sistine Chapel to cast their votes for the next church leader. For now, Wyoming parishioners are praying for Francis and meditating on the example and the legacy that he leaves behind. Well, for much of the past 4 decades, Casper businessman Mike Reed lived with the left ankle free of pain despite an old ankle injury that required surgery 41 years ago. But a recent diagnosis of osteoarthritis explained that chronic pain that had begun creeping into that joint about 18 months ago. However, Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck reports that a new procedure available in Wyoming has rendered Reed virtually pain-free.
He was in constant pain, couldn't sleep at night, and he had a friend who was an interventional radiologist, and he told him about something that was new and that he might be able to help him. And so this patient went ahead with the procedure, took about a little over an hour, but what it involves is putting in what's called an embolic, and it blocks the blood from going to the place where there was an injury. But after he had this procedure, he said right away it helped. And right now he says it's like 95% good. You know, he doesn't have pain, he can sleep, he can use it fully. So it's a brand new kind of technology developed by a Japanese doctor.
Dr. Charles Boukley, who's practiced at Casper Medical Imaging for the past 15 years, said he first learned of the procedure at a medical conference 2 years ago. A federally approved research study confirmed that the procedure shows great promise in treating patients with chronic joint pain caused by osteoarthritis. And Steve Dahlman didn't think he was the type to go to hell and back for his hobby, yet that's exactly what he did during a recent visit to Casper. Dahlman has traveled across the nation visiting and photographing famous film locations. He told Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi that his recent adventure to Hell's Half Acre, the setting for the 1997 film Starship Troopers, was one of his favorites.
Starship Troopers filmed in Hell's Half Acre in the spring and early summer of 1996. And it's the only major film that's ever been filmed there. And it's been blocked off for a while. So when the person I spoke to actually stepped down into the site, it's relatively unchanged. They were attracted to the location because it was so naturally alien and beautiful in its own way. But he did see clear signs of a Hollywood production there. He found shell casings. He found hundreds of nails that were probably removed from sets that they had built in that spot. And he also found giant holes where they had pounded 1-inch thick rebar to build a cave so that they could extract the brain bug out of it, because there are no caves in Hell's Half Acre. So there's going to probably be more people who are naturally just gravitate to Hell's Half Acre because of that small bit of cinema history.
The 320 acres of Hell's Half Acre are part of a 960-acre tract of land owned by Natrona County. It's been closed to the public since 2005, but that hasn't stopped people from hiking in the area, and groups like the Natrona County Outdoor Recreation Collaborative have advocated for reopening the site to outdoor recreation. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel, or you can listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.